Hey everyone, it's Jeremiah back with another Tryon's March real-time update for May 13th. Today's parole is Waddell and the countersign is Charlotte. Yesterday, Tryon's militia was encamped at Haw River and they had just received reports, unsubstantiated, that General Hugh Waddell had been blocked in Salisbury by a large group of regulators. And it's today that those reports are substantiated by a rider sent by Waddell to Governor Tryon. He bears a verbal message. He does not dare to bring a written message to Governor Tryon for fear that it might be intercepted. And Tryon does take note of that message in his campaign journal, which I'm going to read for you now. The purport of which message was that on Thursday evening, the 9th instant, the regulators to the number of 2,000 surrounded his camp and in the most daring and insolent manner required the general to retreat with the troops over the Yadkin River, of which he was then within 2 miles. He refused to comply, insisting he had the governor's orders to proceed. This made them more insolent, and with many Indian shouts, they endeavored to intimidate his men. The general, finding his men not exceeding 300 and generally unwilling to engage, and many of his sentries going over to the regulators, was reduced to comply with their requisition and early the next morning repassed the Yadkin River. Of all the bad news that Governor Tryon has had to face from New Bern up to this point, this is the worst up to this point, by far. This means that Hugh Waddell has been knocked out of the game. His force is neutralized by the regulators, blocked on the wrong side of the Yadkin River, and Tryon is not going to be able to have his rendezvous with those two forces and bolster his own army. So as soon as Tryon hears this report, he convenes his council of war. He gets his most trusted advisors, he gets the officers for the various companies of the county militias, and he brings everyone together to talk about what it is they're going to do. And so it is decided that they are going to divert their path and they are going to take a different route to get to Salisbury and hopefully relieve Hugh Waddell as quickly as possible. So in the journal it states, it was resolved that the army should change their route, get into the road at Captain Holt's that leads from Hillsborough to Salisbury, pass the Little and Great Alamance rivers with all possible expedition, and march without loss of time to join General Waddell. And that's where I'm joining you from now, is this road to Captain Holt's. Michael Holt owns a lot of land in this area, what's now Alamance County. He does live in what is now Graham, North Carolina, and this road that you see behind me is the remains of one portion of the road on Michael Holt's property. Now, interestingly enough, 10 years after this is also going to be a very significant area, and during the American War of Independence, a group of loyalists are going to be ambushed on that road in what comes to be known as Pyle's Defeat or Pyle's Massacre. And this road is going to lead to the encampment that Governor Tryon uses at Great Alamance Creek. So Tryon's objective is to take this road, get to Salisbury as quickly as possible, and use his militia to go on a rescue mission for Hugh Waddell's force. And so what we see in the orders from this day is a expectation that attack can come at any time. There's a lot more fear that the regulators are in the area and they are emboldened to attack the militia. So in the orders for May 13th, officers do state that no officer or soldier to pull off his clothes or stir out of camp without orders. The officers to be particularly attentive to their duty and not suffer the soldiers to make the least noise in case of alarm, but to remain perfectly silent after they are formed. The signal upon an alarm to be, quote, stand to your arms instead of drum beatings. They're trying to be as quiet as possible in case they arouse any regulators who are in the area. A small field piece to be placed in the flanks of each line, and the one piece in the center of the rear line facing the rear. Large fires to be lighted as soon as the army arrives at camp, in the front, rear, and flanks, in the at 200 yards distance from the lines, So they are setting up artillery pieces at their lines and also setting large fires away from their lines to help illuminate the areas. Now, at this time, obviously, tension is incredibly high, and that is based on the news that the militia is receiving today, as well as the effects of moving into a more hostile area. And that is reflected by orders that Tryon passes down that show that there have been some potential abuses by Tryon's troops. Quote, His Excellency, having been informed that the army had committed outrages on the property of the inhabitants, settled on the road contrary to his express commands and scandalous and dishonorable to the service. He does once more strictly forbid every person belonging to the army from taking or disturbing the property of any person whatever, as they will on complaint receive the severest punishment the nature of the offenses deserves, besides making restitution to the persons they injure. And so there is just generally a lot of tension in this area, and that might be leading to some of the troops taking extra legal liberties in confiscating property from people in this area. Now, this, coupled with more news that is going to be received in camp tonight, is only going to escalate the tension of the militia at this time. The final note in the journal states, intelligence being brought this evening into camp that the rebels intended to attack the camp in the night. The necessary preparations were made for an engagement, and 1/3 of the army ordered to remain under arms all night, and the remainder to lay down near their arms. No alarm given. Now, no alarm given means that nothing happened. There were no attacks during the night, but rumors came in that there was going to be a night attack by regulators. So Tryon responds by having his men sleep on their arms or stay under arms. Being under arms means that once you have your musket, you have your accoutrements for carrying your cartridges and your powder, you're going to keep those on and sleep with those throughout the remainder of the night, so that if there is an attack, all they have to do is jump up and they're ready to fight. So obviously tension is as high as possible at this time. We'll see what happens in the intervening days. Again, it's just a rumor that comes in that this night attack is going to happen, but the last time there was a rumor, it turned out to be true. So at this point, the regulators are sending out scouts, and those scouts are going to the settlements of the regulators, where they are amassing and having a gathering at the home of regulator leader James Hunter, which is only a few miles away. So what's going to happen next? Well, stay tuned in our next video as Tryon continues on his march towards Alamance, and I will be back with you tomorrow, May 14th, for another update as things move closer to battle. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure you like, share, and subscribe. Thanks so much. Have a great day, and we'll see you again tomorrow.